Hello, my name's Dave, and I'd like to introduce you today to noted economist and political philosopher, my main man, Adam Smith. Adam was born a Scotsman to a widowed mother in 1723. As a toddler, he was kidnapped from his family by gypsies and rescued by his uncle. Beyond this brush with calamity, young Adam grew up an academic and would spend his life seeking and sharing knowledge. He would go on to pioneer many concepts of the modern market economy, and is important to us in his thoughts of how government affects the quality of those markets. He began attending university at the age of 14 in Glasgow, and later moved to Oxford. His college years would prove difficult. He found Oxford to be stifling and left before his scholarship ended after experiencing fits of anxiety. This did not prove insurmountable, as he would return to Scotland and earn a professorship at Glasgow. His first book, The Theory of Moral Sentiments, was in part expanded from his lectures there. Adam would continue on to earn a doctorate from Glasgow, and then spent 2 years touring Europe as a tutor to young Duke Henry Scott, meeting Ben Franklin while visiting Paris. His second book, The Wealth of Nations, incorporated ideas learned during his teaching tour around Europe. After helping to shape British thought into the direction of capitalist economies as we know them today, he died in 1790, wishing he had accomplished more. The Theory of Moral Sentiments described Smith's ideas of humanity's natural state. He saw people born as blank slates, with morality learned through personal experience in trying to establish what he called a mutual sympathy of sentiments. Later, in The Wealth of Nations, he explored ideas that would shape contemporary economies. Laissez-faire governance and the more modern scourge of trickle-down economics are both extreme takes on the moderation he encouraged. Smith saw the behaviors of a free and competitive market as an overall good, but he saw risks in the tendency of business to collude in the setting of higher prices and in the capacity for governance to impose biased legislation. In Smith's ideal state, the society-serving aspect of governance was a check against the profit-seeking aspect of business. He described labor as a substantive idea, and that the individual's capacity for production ensured a surplus of substance in material form. That surplus would be available to the many in their collective pursuit of prosperity. Smith disapproved of the heavy hand of mercantile economies, but he saw value in government's ability to both discourage monopoly and encourage diversification. Two advocacies that are largely absent from Smith's work relate to the nature of government and the role of women. By his economic theory, we know only that he favored the rule of law. By practice, we see his economies as having been generally good for the health and social status of women. Looking to modern issues, Smith's application to ideas of free trade are clear. That government has a part to play in the business of business, but that part should be very small. Income inequality is a little different. As he described in his first book, people begin as equally blank. His second book, however, describes the efficient seeking of personal advantage. A contradiction is suggested that Smith's words somehow idealize both empathy and competitive profit. Smith's government, however, was an entity that would drive business to seek mutually competitive sympathies with one another, sympathies that would prevent excesses of fortune or influence. One can reasonably expect him to oppose the legislative conditions that would enable massive individual fortunes in the first place. Stemming from his confidence in human sympathies, Smith didn't believe that wealth was bad, but that it has a best use, applied to enhancing or advancing society. Our government, however, is not Smith's, and our businesses have developed in different moral and legislative environments from those he imagined. To both ideas of trade and wealth, Smith would likely see our governance as having misused its influence. And that brings us to the end of our broadcast day. Thank you for these few minutes. I hope this little coffee date with Adam Smith has been good for you too.